Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Debate Hub. I'm here with Chris Shelton. I am excited. This is going to be a good one today. Now, Chris, you've been here a couple of times, and we've sort of talked about culty mentality. We've talked about Scientology. We've talked a little bit about MAGA. And today you have, you've been working on something. You've been working on something, haven't you?
I've been working on a lot of things, yes.
He's sneaking around. How are you? First off, how are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm confused, a little tired. I don't understand what's going on, and I'm hoping you're gonna be able to shine some light for me in my fog of what the fuck are we doing?
What the hell's going on, right?
What the hell's going on? Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk to me.
well, okay, great. Let's talk. So first off, I guess I got to lead with saying, I mean, I don't have some big monologue planned here, but I got things, I got papers, I got things to talk about. Obviously, Trumpism and Trump and stuff is a problem. It's a big, huge problem for a lot of people. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, in literally the middle of America, and it's a gigantic, huge problem. We're not happy about this.
A big orange ball of cluster.
Oh my God. We've had to rethink all kinds of things economically and, safety concerns and should we even stay here and this and that and the other thing. There's been a lot of brouhaha, so to speak, about, what to do about all of this. And I think a lot of my effort personally, just as an individual American regular guy, trying to understand this last November when it happened was like, okay, I really need to get my wits around what the hell is going on here.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't make any sense, and I'm sick and tired of it not making any sense. And I'm sick and tired of people acting in a way that makes me think half the country needs to be put in an insane asylum. That doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're not having a mass hysteria event here. So what's going on?
Right. Yeah. There's no it's the Trump derangement syndrome. Like what are we doing? What is happening? So for anybody just tuning in, this is Chris. I'm Chesh. I am the master debater and host here. Chris has a history in psychology and working in and studying cults. And I'm just some asshole, but I am Canadian, so I'm on the outside, looking in and seeing how America is affecting the world, with its decisions and what is America deciding to do, as well as what this government is deciding to do, right? Because I think that you can say there's a pretty clear delineation going on right now. The divisiveness in the country might not be what you think it is, because it seems to be its government and its people at the moment.
Yes, exactly. Is this a MAGA person in the comments? This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I do think that I am part of the problem. So yeah, so here we go, right?
Absolutely.
We kinda all are. Where I'm coming from, just to be clear on today, where I'm coming from, right, is it would be very, very easy for me, simple. It would be nothing for me to take my knowledge of coercive control, which is what I have a degree in, and very easily explain Trumpism under isolation, manipulation, and control.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
We've talked about that in the past a little bit.
Yeah, cult leader mentality, right? Followers, codependency, cult of Trump, boom, boom, there it is. There's your explanation. Isn't that easy, right? But that doesn't do it at all. It's part of the picture, but it's such a not important part of the picture in the bigger picture of things. And that was what I needed, my own kind of, I gotta, move outside of that very narrow way of thinking about this issue and problem. Now, being a cult guy, I've been studying cults for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And that leads automatically to studying authoritarianism and totalitarianism and these kind of words we throw around to mean too much overwhelming control of individuals and populations, right?
Yeah. A power imbalance.
Yeah, exactly. A misuse of and abuse of the power. If there's one thing all cult leaders have in common, it's that.
Yeah.
They're misusing and abusing their power.
Right.
And they are the other thing that all cults have in common is that the followership, the group members, whether it's one person in a relationship or, a million people under Sun Myung Moon,
Right.
they are also codependently contributing to the problem.
Right.
Without in any way lessening the fact that they are being victimized and lied to and deceived, you understand? I'm not taking that away. I'm not saying that they are somehow responsible for being lied to or
Right.
responsible for being victimized.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody gets up in the morning and goes, "Oh yeah, victimize me," right? Nobody wants that.
Right.
But they are in a codependent relationship, which means they feel emotionally connected and tied to and need this leader.
Mm-hmm.
God man, cult leader, guru, right? And that leader needs them. It's totally codependent. It's really unhealthy relationship, right?
If I'm understanding sort of what you're getting at, would an example be like mainstream media?
No, I'm talking straight up cults right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, go on.
Cults. Mm-hmm. Okay. I say all that, right, because that's where I come from and what I know about. Mm-hmm. And so through that lens, I can very definitely describe the Trump phenomena or a political cult of personality. Mm-hmm. But there are other social forces at play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that they explain how we got here and why this is happening in a way that sort of transcends the Trumpian magnetic personality and somehow he's brainwashed people.
Right.
Right? Because he hasn't. And it would be the wrong use of even the terminology to say that he has. In Scientology, you actually do get brainwashed. Like there are things that are
built into the dogma that you have to participate in, and that participation is like literally was banned in the 70s for being torture.
Exactly. So there are things that they're doing to you that you're not informed about, you didn't consent to, and
the MAGA people aren't locking people in rooms and like hitting them with a stick. You know what I mean? That's not happening.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's bad stuff, right? And gaslighting campaigns and years, when you're in a cult, you're exposed to this stuff for a long time, so you get a lot of overwhelming things done to you.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're not necessarily aware of what's going on because you're being fed explanations for what's going on that sound like they make sense but have nothing to do with reality.
Right.
Right? Whether it's your chakras or your third eye or your thetan or, your body thetans or whatever it is that the cult is feeding you as the explanation for, all these feelings and things you're experiencing. The fact of having experiences is real.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
The interpretations of it is what's the bullshit, right?
Right.
So that's your cult sort of model, and it loosely, very, very, very loosely applies to a subset of Trump followers.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
You have your red hats. You have the guys who are running around with the flags and their yards full of stuff, and
the January 6ers that would actually participate in violence. Yeah. That's
right. There's a radicalization element. There's a identity issue where they're identifying with Trump, and they, Trump becomes to those individuals. This is the important part. Trump becomes to those individuals the source of truth.
Right. Right.
So when you see people in MAGA saying, that mainstream media cannot be believed and that sort of thing, not just that there's bias, which there is, or that there's a lack of nuance, which sometimes there is, but to say straight up everything they're saying is just vicious lies and you can't believe anything they're saying and you can only look to Trump or the Trumpian camp to find, truth.
Yeah.
And it's not accidental that things like Truth Social are called Truth Social.
Right. There's that, and then like on top of it, like these ideas, like that's almost like your ultimate echo chamber, right?
Yes. Yes.
one person says it and then everybody starts repeating it, and then more people start repeating it. They're echoing the same thing, and that whatever that thing is can change on a dime, even if it's completely contradictory to the thing that they said 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so I wanted to say all that to kind of acknowledge the fact that there's a cult.
Yeah.
And I get to say that because I know all about cults, right? And
I have the education to determine that.
That's my jam, right? That's what I know about. So so I get to talk about that. But I felt continually frustrated over the last many years trying to explain Trumpism using that model.
Okay.
Because it doesn't really totally fit. It only fits for a small subset. And the more you talk about it, the more pissed off you make the rest of the people who aren't in that cult.
Right.
Plus, you're pissing off the people who are in the cult, because people who are in a cult never, ever acknowledge that they are. It's just a given. You can't use the word and have a conversation with somebody who's in a cult. They're just not going to go there, and they're not going to give you that. So you're automatically making them mad at you, right?
Yeah.
So there's not really a lot of productivity to be had in talking about Trumpism as a cult.
It's helpful to some degree within the subsect, but not necessarily for overall conversation if you want to talk about politics.
Exactly. And telling me that I'm in a cult is fascinating, because I
want to know which one. I want to know which cult you're in. Mine. You're in my cult.
Yeah. So
okay. Welcome.
But let's take a look at now the bigger picture, because I went, okay, fine. So if it's not all just a cult, and it's not, and there are other social forces at work, and it was the economics of it that started kind of getting me thinking, and the global picture. And a lot of people don't stop and take a good amount of time to get the global picture.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
It is. Yeah, it's
really has to do with our day-to-day, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's sort of outside of the scope of what most people deal with on a regular basis, and also is labor intensive. So, like, if you want to learn about geopolitics and learn about other countries and how they view you, first off, you kind of have to understand where you're at. Then you have to understand where they're at. Then you have to understand this people, these people, these people, these people. And it's like, it's very overwhelming. And it's like, a lot of people don't have time for that. Not in this economy.
Well, exactly. And so they don't understand our economy and why it is the way that it is, or what made it the way that it is. And yet the economy has everything to do with people's happiness, mental health, livelihood, quality of life. All of that is wrapped up in the economy, and has been forever. At least in our lifetimes, and those of our parents and our grandparents. And that's kind of how far back some of the problems that created what we have now go. And it's relevant to know about some of that, because you can never understand why people feel the way they do if you don't understand where they're coming from and what's been happening to them. And we on the left really pride ourselves on doing that for minorities.
Sure.
Unless they share our skin color. Then we really suck at it.
Sure. And
that's just something I've noticed over the years, is any minority has rights, not more rights, but more attention.
Yeah. There's a lot of focus put onto things like that. Yeah.
And that alone is a catalyst for people to feel ignored
and victimized,
and take on a victim narrative. That's right.
Yeah.
There are other reasons they take on the victim narrative, though, and that has to do with the economics. But when the media attention is oversized on this group or this group or this group, and only villainizes, the white people, right? Then the white people start going, what the fuck?
I think it's that idea of when somebody else is getting rights, you feel like you're getting less, even though you've lost nothing. Because now you had an advantage that you don't have, so the only thing you've actually lost is an advantage that you weren't due in the first place. And Correct. So, have you lost something? Yes, But did you? But it feels that way regardless of what it actually is.
Well, and then there's another step on that exact same logic train. Which is, yes, you're right. You didn't lose anything in terms of, the laws didn't get rewritten for you or something, right?
Yeah.
Or for them or whatever. But if all of the attention and compassion and tolerance and funding is going in that direction and not going in and you perceive, at least your perception is that none of it's coming in your direction.
Right.
Then it kicks in injustice.
Right.
And we all know from 2020, summer 2020, just how powerful a motivating force injustice can be in a society or in a community.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have a bunch of poor white people rioting, but we do have a bunch of poor white people.
We got a whole bunch of rich white people.
And we have the other end of the spectrum. That's right. And
sure.
Oh my God. And so much in between. So the politically dispossessed and economically left behind are a huge, huge part of this picture. And if we can have compassion for this group of people and this group of people, I don't quite know why we can't have compassion for another group of disenfranchised, economically left behind, and no opportunities given to them group of people who happen to share our skin color. And I don't, and that doesn't mean that I'm in any way saying that we shouldn't have had or shouldn't have.
Yeah, of course, that's not what you're saying.
We did with the civil rights movement. I love the civil rights movement. This isn't my personal take on the civil rights movement or me trying to backwards invalidate it. I support all of that. But we didn't get everybody.
Right. Oh, yeah. And you can't. Here's the thing about civil rights, and it's really, really frustrating, and idealistically, it shouldn't be this way. It'd be nice if it wasn't, but unfortunately, we're humans and we live in a society, so that immediately ruins everything. Idealistically, everybody should have rights all of the time, and we should snap our fingers and everybody has rights. It doesn't work like that because there are multiple forces of people being people that make that incredibly difficult, and yet they need to learn acceptance. They need to learn that your beliefs don't necessarily matter to the way somebody wants to live their life, because that doesn't affect you or doesn't harm you in X, Y, or Z way. But that is steps. You don't get everybody having all rights all at the same time. You get, okay, here's the largest minority. Here's the next largest minority. Here's the next largest minority. There's a reason why gay rights came before trans rights. There's a reason why women's rights came before gay rights. And it's because it's a process. Right? And it's not like, it would be great if we could just say, hey, everybody gets civil rights. That would be wonderful. Unfortunately, we can't because people suck. Short answer.
Indeed. Since the 1950s era of prosperity and expansion post-World War II in the United States, since that time, with that growth, that the whole world kind of was raised up after World War II, that was still only 3 out of 4 people. You still had 1 out of 4 in America, subsistence, poverty, not being able to take advantage of or even be given the opportunity to take advantage of the American dream.
Yes.
So 3 out of 4 were getting it great, but 1 out of 4 weren't. And that's a lot. But it wasn't apparent for a very long time.
Right.
Because so much prosperity, so much expansion, and so much other cultural noise to pay attention to, from everything from McCarthyism to countercultural revolution to Martin Luther King to the moon landing, Nixon, Vietnam, Korean War, all of those things occupied so much noise and attention that the 1 in 4, the disenfranchised of the United States, just kind of fell between the cracks. Yeah.
And then that's like including the genuine things, not even the additional disingenuous stuff that's thrown on top of it. Right? So like the drug war. like other like redlining, like all these other like additional things that were causing extra problems that nobody needed.
Exactly. Very much so. So we've had culture war issues, or cultural, political slash economic stuff. There's always stuff you can look at and point to and go, noise here, noise there, noise here, noise there, and things happening, right? But that 1 in 4 is kind of an important thing. And as time has moved forward through the 50s and prosperous 60s, and then we hit what was called stagflation of the 70s, where inflation grew and unemployment grew, and nobody really totally could figure out exactly why, because it was breaking all the economic models. And we were having an oil crisis, and there were two, in fact, and a bunch of other stuff. I've been reading about all this stuff lately. That's why I have all this stuff at the top of my head. Normally, this isn't my jam, but this is stuff to know about, because the 70s is the turning point. The 70s is the time when neoliberalism comes kicking in. When the free market idea, when no, let the markets decide. No, let's deregulate all the economic institutions. Let's deregulate mass media. Let's deregulate Wall Street. And what happens? Well, an awful lot of prosperity for some.
Yeah, right.
Who are able to jump onto this, but this is when the inequality, that the massive amounts of inequalities really start kicking in.
Right.
And that has everything to do with generational poverty.
Generational wealth and generational poverty,
Exactly.
right? It's both. So which
exactly
then you're doing one of these, and that gap gets wider and wider and wider and wider.
That's right. And that's been happening for the last 50 years. 50 years of widening gaps between the 1%. First, it was the 10%. Now it's the 1%. Right. And the rest of everybody else, right?
And it jumped from 10% to 1% really fast, because these kinds of things are exponential.
Yeah, it kind of did. And a lot of the phenomena we saw through the 2000s and 2010s was that gap of the 10% widening, and that 10% becoming more what we think of as middle class.
Right.
Gentrification, for example, right?
A lot of this is also like it's less race related, although it disproportionately affects minorities, but is very class related. It's very much a class issue, but it's this. People are stupid, and so they'll be like, well, I see that rich guy, and they're a rich white guy, and I'm a white guy, I could be rich one day. They identify with that easier than they identify with their neighbor who's suffering the exact same fucking thing.
Oh, well, sure, of course. Well, the other thing, of course, is there's a longer term. There's an even longer term picture, which is selling America on selling, and making and turning people into salespeople across their entire life. And this was concurrent with the rise of multi-level marketing, and that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, by Dale Carnegie. And
I want to get a link to it. Sorry, what was the name of the author?
Dale Carnegie was the man's name. And he anyway, it's just kind of, why are we so obsessed with selling and having things and all of that? It all goes back to that. But I get ahead of I'm moving bigger than I wanted to.
Oh, you got too far. Turn around. Go back.
So anyway, I just wanted to point out that stuff about the finances, because it's only because the 70s is where it starts. The 80s is when we have greed is good. If you all remember that, or if you don't, check it out, because it was the motto of the 1980s. I was there.
Oh yeah.
Greed is good. It was the absolute attitude that just took over Wall Street and investment management and arbitrage and venture capital. And all of this stuff became like these industries during this time, as I recall. And and that attitude's never really left. The greed is good thing is still alive and well.
Oh yeah.
It's what fuels Wall Street and stuff, and led
Mm-hmm.
to the 90s dot-com boom and
Yep.
bust, and the 2008 housing market crash, right? We saw,
Yep.
you can trace the origins of that to
Mm-hmm.
greed and milking and gaming the systems so that they could acquire an enormous amount of wealth in an incredibly short period of time.
And just enough, of sorry, one second. Sorry, I just need the light turned on in here. The one of the things just enough people were able to, the middle class people were able to take advantage of it. Just enough. Because you don't want too many and you don't want them to be able to do too much, but you want them to be enough that they're satisfied with what they feel like they're getting theirs. So they're not going to be upset or see the problem because the problem for them doesn't exist.
Well, for sure, for true. Yeah, absolutely. These booms and busts, though, have created more and more of that wage gap, asset gap, right? So the poor and the disadvantaged just keep getting poorer, and they keep getting more and more of them. And that's where a lot of this base comes from. It's just people who've just been ignored, kind of just left there. It's not great. It's not a good, I mean, it's just in terms of the historical look at it, it's kind of like shame on us. Shame on our government, shame on our systems, shame on our states, because this is a state level issue, not just a federal government issue. There's a lot of shame to pass around about those who are left behind, no matter what their skin color or immigration status is, across the United States. We have done a very poor job of taking care of all of our people. And basically, that sentiment has been what's created this problem in a nutshell, because what happens as a direct result of this economic disparity is the rest of the chain of events that has to happen for somebody like Trump to come around. This is a historical thing. Once you break people's faith in the system, then why would they trust it anymore?
Right.
When you keep telling them it's their lack of hard work and ingenuity and pick themselves up and dust themselves off, and you say that over and over to people who you never give an opportunity to and who can't find an opportunity because it just doesn't exist around them, then after a while, people are just going to stop believing you. Right? No, it's not a matter of me picking myself up by my bootstraps. No, it's not a matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. You have to have straps and boots in the first place.
Well, exactly. And when the people, and then to learn, as any of us who have experienced the feeling of betrayal before, right? And to then learn that the people who are supposed to be helping you are in fact getting rich off of your tax money or the opportunities that they're taking from you so they can enrich themselves, your representatives, your congressmen, your local business people, your, the international folks, like all of the people above you.
Yeah.
You start resenting that, right?
Oh, I think it's very clear that there's a lot of resentment on the left for the political left Democrats. Absolutely. I think that resentment is obvious right now.
Yes, although I'm talking about Trump's base right now, which is on the populist right.
Oh yeah, I think it's absolutely applicable across the board right now. I think Americans in general are just mad. And some of that anger is directed in the right direction, some of it's directed in things that I wouldn't agree with, and some of it is just not directed at all. They're just mad and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, exactly. I've been saying for years, you're right to be mad. You're just wrong. You're just mad at the wrong things.
I think that we were talking about this before we went live, where we kind of were on the same page, saying that the left and the right are both mad at the same thing. Yep. And it is the disenfranchisement with the system. Yep. And it's coming from two different places.
Yep.
And a lot of it is, in my opinion, Trump directing anger towards the Democrats and the left being also mad at the Democrats.
Yeah.
Everybody's mad at the Democrats, and they're not wrong.
They're not wrong, and they're not wrong in that. And there has been, if anything is sort of dividing America right now in terms of the left and the right, it's the different explanations that they're being given or that they're accepting for why things are the way they are.
Yeah, there's
right?
two really big things. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm derailing us, but
Go ahead.
let me know what you think about this. There are two really big factors that like I've noticed, and one of them is this attempt to dismiss any kind of emotion about something. So, like, the facts don't care about your feelings, or like, oh no, I'm not mad, you're mad, or I'm trying to make you mad on purpose, rather than trying to, like, actually solve the problem, which is what politics is supposed to be about. So, like, your culture war politics type stuff, and
Sure.
your rage babe. And the other one is this disdain for education. Like, people are like, you're a doctor, you're a therapist, you're a teacher, you are a biologist, you have an education. Therefore, you're part of the system that I've already dismissed, and I am actually proud that I don't know what I'm talking about.
No,
in fact, it makes me more correct and more earnest than you, which is like baffling to me, absolutely baffling position to me.
Okay, well, let me explain it, because it's actually really simple. If I take everything away from you, what do you have left?
Nothing?
If I take your money, if I take your opportunities, if I take your ability to have a voice in the system, what do you have left?
All I have left is myself and whatever I'm able to do.
Your identity, who you see yourself as.
Okay.
Of course, you're going to see yourself as the opposite of the people you think took all that away from you.
Oh, okay. So I'm not them, so that's my identity, because that's now the only real thing that I have to identify with.
That's right. You're proud to not be that. Right. You double down on that, right?
Because they're bad people.
For the felon.
Right.
Right?
Right. Okay.
I proudly embrace the identity that you aren't. You see?
Right.
That's the whole basis of the American divide right now on red versus blue. And it's just, I have to be what you aren't. It's not even about the values of liberalism or progressivism versus conservatism.
It's not about politics anymore.
It's not. It's about identity. And this is
identity politics.
Identity politics, right? I mean, and identity politics exists on the left and the right in equal measure. We just manifest it differently and use different words to talk about it. But it is still the same thing. When your ideological awareness or perception is fixated on one or two issues, that are kind of either culture war values or identity values, and that's all the lens you have, then your view of ideology is incredibly limited, like a cult member.
Yeah, when you distill a person down, and it's like, I mean, there are movies and books and media written about just breaking somebody down and just slowly taking every single thing away from them, who they are, where they grew up, destroying their hometown, taking away the thing that there's like any story where an athlete has like a career-ending injury, and they have to like reimagine and relearn and figure out who they are and overcome whatever the odd is. But in this case, we're talking about generations of many people not being able to overcome that because there's nothing to overcome to. It's just more of the same. It's like an onion. And then you keep peeling it back and finding more layers, and then you start to cry because you have nowhere to go.
Exactly. There's a predictable, at least in hindsight, of course, it's very obvious, set of consequences from this. You know, you do this to people long enough and they're going to start pushing back.
And that's fair.
What's happening. And the good news right now, and there are a lot of pieces of good news that we're sort of ignoring because we take them for granted or something. And I don't mean like there's some silver lining here, because there kind of isn't actually, but there are
kind of just got to get through it, I guess.
Well, that's kind of one of the things I mean, is that we have to have a little bit of an attitude shift, which I haven't even gotten to yet. But
yeah,
because I kind of wanted to break down a little bit first, like how we got here, right? And this distrust in our institutions is epidemic. It's quite ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere, and it's strong. It's a strong distrust. Did you know that in the 1950s, the trust level, the surveyed trust level in our United States government, which has been tracked for years, 70%.
That's high.
70%.
That's incredibly high.
Incredibly high compared to where it's now. It's barely 20% right now.
Barely exists.
Yeah, barely exists, right? Talk about approval ratings, this kind of thing. But this is just trust. This is just trust. And it's plummeted. And for lots and lots of very good reasons. It's not that the public, should just stop not trusting the government. And that's not what I'm suggesting. There's a lot of reasons why. I mean, Vietnam, hello, right? Nixon.
The war on drugs. Anytime a Democrat is in, nothing happens.
Deregulation. I mean, there's so many things, right?
So tell me about, is there a degree of complacency that could be considered part of the issue here?
On the part of the left, yeah. It's been described as technocratic centrism. Which is a term I guess I could agree with, right? Because America doesn't really have much of a left. We're pretty right wing, right? Our center is.
I was having this conversation like last week, and I was just like, "What center? You guys don't have a center anymore. Yeah, your left is right. What are you talking about?" And so you've got like a couple individuals that are left that are in politics, but you don't have a left wing. You don't even have a center.
I'm aware.
I'm sorry.
That being said, you have this sort of history of a quiet, meek Democratic Party that is sort of propped up with technocratic centrism, right? And as long as the status quo is pretty good or okay for most people, then everything's fine. Don't fucking rock the boat. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to work out fine. That's
trust the system.
That's the complacency that's been going on for a real long time. And and we kind of, just let's just get along. It's not too bad. It's not too great, but it's not too bad. And hey, look, there's all these good things happening. So, and this has been, unfortunately, we have not had a principled, value-led, vision-oriented Democratic Party. We've had a lot of, flowery language, but the actual rubber meets the road work of managing and running a country or running states, they're just not really great at. And so, and compromise has slowly been a word that has become less and less popular over this time of economic disparity and distrust, right? This growing foundation of distrust and disillusionment with not just the American dream, but the entire institution of the United States. That's systemic. That's existential.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's the kind of thing that actually is acid eating at the foundations of the house.
Right.
And the Democrats have ignored that. They used to be working class, right? You pro-union, pro-working class, like let's get people working, let's get people earning, let's get America great through that. And there was a time where that was the formula that was working, right? But America is not a manufacturing giant anymore. They stopped doing that.
Well, and that was intended. Like that was part of the plan. Part of the plan was America was supposed to move away from manufacturing and move into scientific advancements and advanced technologies and move into a higher educated job field to lead the world. That was the point. But then it felt like you just decided to half do that and half not do that, and people kind of just forgot, and now you're like, we want mining jobs again, and we want children working? Like, there are states right now lowering the age of education because they're like, we don't have enough immigrants.
Well, exactly. And
what is happening?
Well, here's what's happening there, okay, is when people are faced with a situation that they can't do anything about,
Sure.
are disenfranchised with their current system, so they have no reason to want this system as it is to continue existing.
Sure.
Not necessarily anarchy as a solution. People don't jump to anarchy as the first thing they want. What do they instead almost always tend to do? They want to roll back the clock.
Yeah, go back to the comfort zone.
They want to go back to when it was great. Because we all remember when it was better in our lives.
But we don't. That's the other thing. Do we? Because there seems to be a very stark disagreement on when things were better.
Only amongst those who really weren't there when it really was great. And by great, I mean better than it is now economically.
Yeah, but better than it was now economically was like 6 months ago.
you house, you could get an education, you could get your kids educated, and you can have a better than average certainty that you are going to be safe and secure.
Yeah, but then we're going to have to talk about something that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, and it's women joining the workforce made a really, really, really big change to what they were allowed to be paid, and caused a really, really big problem because now there were 2 household incomes. And yet now, why didn't women not have the same buying power doing the same work? And so why do now nobody has a job or has enough with 2, 3, 4 people are living in renting houses and they've got 3
Well,
roommates.
that's how bad the income inequality is. I mean, the wage gap and wage gap, because that's going to bring other
disparity.
But the disparity, exactly, the economic disparity, right?
Because I've been calling it the wage gap too. Don't feel bad.
When I'm talking about income, not income, but economic disparity, I'm not just talking about wages.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's about buying power.
Yeah, we're talking about also who has the assets, who owns the houses, who owns all the manufacturing, all the stuff, right? Yep. Is it, and when it's concentrated to a small number of people, which is where we're at now, or, and rapidly.
That's why trust busting was such a big
worse. Well, that's exactly right? But when you weaken those controls and you deregulate the government's ability to define the channels and keep people on them, this is what you get, right? Is you get unbridled greed.
And you get that, and this is what I mean when I'm talking about complacency. The people who have benefited, and I mean like the individuals, the voters, who have benefited from Social Security and have lived comfortably are like, well, we don't really need Social Security. I never had to use it because it's something that's happening in the background. They don't even really understand like what these safety nets were for, and then they just borrowed from the future, and then dug a hole for everybody else to fall into because we're just like, great, now what do we do about it?
Yeah, there's a big problem with any government anywhere in the world with generational maintenance of intent, right? You can start something in one administration, but 2 administrations later, it could be, that great piece of policy or legislation could maybe carry on, maybe be corrupted or twisted or canceled altogether. And then 2 generations after that, you're like, why did we do that? Well, because some jerk got the idea that
one of the things that I find so absolutely frustrating about Canada's current election, because we have federal laws in place, and a lot of times the way a federal law goes into place is because the provinces have ultimately already agreed on it, particularly if it's a social issue. So particularly if it's like gay marriage, for example. And our Conservative Party is like, no, that power should be with the provinces. And it's like, one, it already is, and two, you're just trying to roll back a federal law about civil rights for people. So what, one pocket of the country can just ignore a whole group's civil rights across the country? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That is what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's
throw bricks.
That's the kind of societal injustice, you know,
right,
that just rankles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, an argument could be made that this goes all the way back to Reconstruction, but
oh
you know,
yeah,
to the 50s. I was okay with that, right? Because we truly had. I mean, it's not an illusion. It wasn't bullshit. America and the world experienced an incredible period of growth and real economic parity, and people just had better lives post World War II. You know, for a generation or two, it was just a really, it was great. It wasn't great for everybody, though. And the seeds of that ungreatness is what grew to create the problems we have now, right?
That's the whole point of moving forward and making progress and being like, listen, it's great to be great. Can we be better?
Exactly.
And I think that America has kind of forgotten about that. America's kind of been like, no, we're already at the top of the pile, so we don't need to fix anything. And so any of the fixes that are going on are more destructive than constructive.
Well, and the underlying principle there is greed is good.
Right.
Because that's the ruling class, right? And here I am now on the left, because I'm not a right-wing populist.
Were you a right-winger at any point?
When I was in Scientology, I was conservative.
Okay.
Yes. And I called myself conservative, and I thought of myself that way. And I was a ditto head. So I was like a Rush Limbaugh kind of conservative.
Right.
But I was really barely into politics, to be honest. I was into Rush Limbaugh because he was an entertaining figure.
Right.
And I sort of understood politics through the lens of how he explained it. But that was the sum total of my engagement with it, because I was in a cult. And I'm
the equivalent. Is the equivalent of a lefty only watching Jon Stewart?
No. But there are some people who manifest their, who get all their political information only from Jon Stewart.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like somebody who's not really into politics and they only watch Jon Stewart, so they're a leftist because they like Jon Stewart. It's like,
sure.
Maybe don't.
Absolutely. No, I had a sort of taxes are bad, libertarian, proto sort of half libertarian kind of approach, just because of the Scientology stuff, because that was how Hubbard would talk about stuff. But after I got out of Scientology, I found myself basically looking down the barrel of human rights and trying to figure out how to align my politics with that. And that's what sort of drew me over to the left, and tolerance and, okay, like gay rights and that kind of thing. And yeah, this is good. Civil rights movement, evolution of that. Absolutely. Let's LGBTQ, go. Handled a lot of stuff from the cult that was in my mind about all of that. And tried to be pro-human rights. That was my tack. That was my centerpiece for how I thought about the world.
Humanism.
It still is, for the most part, still is. Yeah. And so I found myself on the political left here in the States, but I was so naive and ignorant of most of it that, I didn't even understand the concept of, what do you mean we don't have a left in the United States? Like, I used to rail against that. I used to get mad with people when they would say that. What are you talking about? Just because I didn't yet
the have left is more than just civil rights.
Yeah, a lot more. And all the way over to, communism, right? You got cults on the left too. So anyway, it's just taken a long time to get my head around all this stuff.
And and that's fair. It's a lot. It's taken me a long time to sort of have an idea of what I'm talking about. I was studying politics before I was on YouTube, before I could even and I didn't even talk about very much politics for when I first got onto more commentary YouTube stuff. So you don't hear me talking about it nearly as much. And so now I'm far more involved, but I didn't start talking about it until I was somewhat informed about what I was talking about.
Right.
But I'm also not educated in it. I'm not a poli-sci student.
No, I always lead with that too. I'm not a poli-sci guy. Yep. I've only gotten into this degree. I'm trying to understand what's going on, you know. And when I was talking about earlier, when I was talking about the world stuff, you know, the kind of things that I was learning about last year after Trump got elected to kind of get my head on straight with some of this was like the population problem, for example.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just some right-wing bullshit, right? I mean, we are losing people, and in a couple generations,
in Canada too.
Mm-hmm. This point, yeah, we're going to have a lot less people, you know, and that's going to have a tremendous effect on all kinds of things.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's not like far away. I mean, it's well, like, goddamn, that's
within
a big,
20 years, yeah.
You know, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it outside of the demographic circles and World Economic Forums. You know, you don't. Only at the once I learned all the facts of it, and then I watched how it was being talked about on social media. I was like, man, people have no idea what's going on with this at all. It's really. I think it's some right-wing conspiracy theory, or they think it's some Elon Musk talking point or something. And I'm like, just because they dabble in it doesn't make it invalid. There's a whole body of information to learn about this. And
any good propagandist, any good salesman will have some truth to what they are saying.
Yeah, exactly. So
the Earth does look flat if you look around, and that's all you do, and you don't think about anything.
I mean, I look at Elon Musk as a broken clock personally, but you know, anyway, so I don't even want to have a poli-sci degree, right? I don't even want to go all the way in on this stuff. I'm only learning it to the degree that I need to understand what the hell's going on. Right. And again, answer the question I'm always trying to ask myself: why are people acting the way they do? Right? Why
are they acting this way? And how do you deal with this? Like, what is America even supposed to do about this scenario? Because everybody's mad. Nobody knows what's going on. There's confusion, mass hysteria, cats and dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. I don't know what's going on. Pierre Poilievre's mad because Carney wore the wrong kind of socks. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah. Well, you're going to find that as this progresses forward, it is not great news, but, you know, predictably what we're seeing is a breakdown in the social contract. And that's kind of what we're watching right now. And when the social contract breaks and starts being ripped apart, not just have little tears in it or things crossed out, but actual like, yeah, we're done with this now. That's when you start seeing behavior like you're seeing now, where it's burn it to the ground behavior and kind of crazy, hysterical, rah, over destruction, overtly destructive things. People cheer it on. That's where that comes from, right? It's a sort of a gleeful sort of thing.
I think that's a little bit more of a cathartic thing.
Well, it feels that way in the moment, but it's not cathartic. It is the opposite of that, you know? But it feels like it. That's why people do.
Yeah, I think that there's like a lot of people who are relishing the destruction of Elon Musk because they equate it to the destruction that Elon Musk is causing. And so because there's that association there, they're like, you're getting a taste of your own medicine, fuck you. Right?
Yeah, but I think
it's an attitude.
What I was referring to specifically in tearing up the social contract is people's gleefully watching Doge do what it's doing.
Oh yeah, people that are happy about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, tear it up, man. Burn it to the ground, salt the earth.
Yep.
They mean it. How do you get an American citizen to that headspace? How about generations of disenfranchisement? You know?
Yeah, generations of disenfranchisement, no movement in any other direction. Like, I, in my opinion, having been on the outside, as, again, not an American, it seems to me that the politicians in America, all of them, except for, like, maybe if you can name a couple, which is inconsequential because we're talking about politics as a whole, or parties as a whole, have just been flat out ignoring the American people. Like, they've just been doing whatever they wanted to do, regardless of what the American people are saying, what the American people are saying that they want, regardless of whether they agree with those things or not. Because guess what? It's not a politician's job to have an opinion. It's a politician's job to understand your opinion and then make it happen.
That is absolutely an idealistic idea of what a politician is, and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Unfortunately, it's not the way things are. Too bad.
It's unfortunately that ain't how it works in the real world, but it certainly work a hell of a lot better than it has been working. And this is the degradation and sort of slow destruction that is invisible in the day to day, right? Which is why I try to go big picture.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you see people start tearing down the structures of society because they do not any longer have faith in them or any belief or hope that they're going to work for them, this is what you see. This is what happens. This is what
Well,
it looks
because they view the system as oppression at that point, regardless.
exactly.
And you're seeing
just
America get destroyed on both ends.
and it's actually not at all dissimilar to why there were riots in the summer of 2020.
Right.
Right? It's the same phenomenon on a national scale. Right? BLM was focused on a few cities. Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis were hot spots.
Yeah.
This is nationwide.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before the protests that are going on right now turn into riots. Like,
well, there predictably could be radicalization and violence. We hope it doesn't go there, and it doesn't have to. But if the left doesn't get their head on straight as to how this has all been happening, they're going to act and do the same things that MAGA is doing.
Yeah. Because you're boxing people into a corner.
Yeah.
You're giving them no other choice. The MAGA people, the January 6th people, felt like they had no other choice and felt like they were correct, regardless of what you watching believe. This is what they felt and thought and believed. And if you can't acknowledge what these people think, feel, and believe, you're never going to get anywhere, because you have to understand where these people are coming from to be able to communicate with them at all, or even find common ground. I think that there's a lot of common ground between the left wing and the right wing when it comes to disenfranchisement.
Exactly. That's exactly where. Thank you for saying that, because that's where all this goes. That's exactly my conclusion on this. Is look, actually, the truth is, we have way more in common with these people than we imagine we do.
I think most conservatives, I was saying this for in regards to Canadian conservatives on my own channel. I don't know how much it applies to American conservatives. I think that there's a lot of people who are more center-right than they present themselves as, because the only way they feel like they're getting anything done is by moving with a group that doesn't wholly agree with, or that this group cares more about something than they actually do, but this is the only way to get things done, so they jump on the bandwagon.
Sure.
So I don't think most conservatives care if other people are gay. Like, I don't think they actually care. Of course. Why would you give a shit? So I also don't think that, like, trans people matter that much to the majority of the conservatives. It's just an easy talking point that it's easy to repeat to feel like you're getting somewhere, or to align yourself with a group that does feel like it's getting something done, regardless of whether or not they are.
Yes. And the other thing I'll say to that is that as people become more and more divided, as we have been with the left-right divide, right? As they hunker into their echo chambers more and more, you find niche issues taking on greater and greater importance. Things that really don't, I'm not going to say don't matter, because of course trans rights matter, Jesus Christ, but that big picture of things,
it doesn't matter who wins the high school track meet. It doesn't fucking matter when you're talking about an entire nation's politics. Stop making everything identity politics about shit that is ultimately irrelevant to whether or not your country burns to the ground.
My point, right? So the small things become the big things, because nobody can actually deal with the big things.
We want to handle the things that we feel like we have control over.
Honestly, they don't understand them or they don't have the capacity to go there, or it just doesn't seem like it's that important.
Mhm.
Right? But this is something I can grab onto and do something about, or have a voice in, or do something with, right? That's again, it's a kind of a reflection of people's sense of agency and involvement in their government and their systems, right? When they go to the niche, narrow issues and make it that's the whole thing, we've lost sight of some bigger picture issues, you know, and that's a reflection of so many levels of our society. There's no one thing causing all this. It's everything, you know. But this is sort of this. When I talk about social forces, this is exactly the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Well, and it's forcing identity politics into a position where we're not here talking about that. So, like, for example, the government shouldn't be talking about this. So, like, for example, it's easy for somebody who feels like they are out of control, who feels like there's nothing they can do, to put control or pressure and force control on somebody weaker or smaller than them.
Yeah.
There are more MAGA people than there are trans people, for example.
Sure.
So it's a lot easier for people who are frustrated and angry about things that they feel are out of their control to rally around something they feel like they can control, and when it's something that's smaller and a lesser of an issue, because realistically, like, if you want to talk about statistics and percentages, the number of trans people in America is such like a small percentage that, like, in any other, if you weren't concerned about like a bajillion other things that were taking up so much of your brain power that you needed a distraction, you wouldn't fucking give a shit. People wouldn't fucking care.
No, but there's also another layer to that too, let's bring this in on it, right? The other layer of that is moral outrage, and the moral outrage is how you keep people riled up and how you keep people united and together on something, right? Is you make it a moral outrage, and a real binding glue underneath the surface of a lot of the MAGA world, not all of it, but a lot of it, is evangelical belief. And an idea that America was great because it had God at the forefront, right? In God we trust and all that kind of stuff. It's very 1950s kind of thinking.
Oh yeah, you can look back at any kind of time like this and you will find like the stupid little shit that everybody's rallying around that does not matter in like a global political scene.
Well, exactly. But the point being that it is something you can rally people around. And if it connects with their moral foundations, then they'll die for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. As soon as they think it's like as soon as there's righteous indignation and.
Well, see for these folks, the very existence of and glorification, air quote, of anything having to do with LGBTQ, much less not just trans, but LGBTQ period, is a glorification of Satan, of the perverse, of the corrupt, of the moral degradation of our society, of the breakdown in the family unit, of the breakdown.
Dungeons and Dragons is the devil. Do you hear how silly you sound?
It's satanic panic. It's the same shit.
Same shit.
But it's great for unity and cohesion in a time when people have no faith in their institutions or the government. So it's a populist effort, really. It's a populist moral outrage that Trump is taking great advantage of. On the left right now, that same phenomena is happening with Tesla.
Yes.
It's the same phenomena.
One of my favorite things about this Tesla upset right now is everybody, this isn't just America. I want to be clear. People who are watching, it is not America. It wasn't even the first place to damage a Tesla building. I'm pretty sure the first place that did it was France, because France is aggressive as fuck. They don't give a fuck. And then it was France, and then Germany, and then America got onto it. So, like, this isn't like an America thing. It is like, this man is hated around the world.
Totally. And it's completely self-inflicted hate. I mean, I was saying the other day, I've talked about Musk at some length, this guy. I love and hate talking about him, so I'm not sure how much I want to do it on this, but I will say that there was a definite Schadenfreude in watching him get trolled on online gaming. Did you see that video the other day of Musk?
He was on Path of Exiled.
Yeah.
And he was playing the tutorial boss, and he kept losing, and he just got absolutely bullied until he rage quit.
Harshly. It was mean bullying, and I was there for it because goddamn, fuck that guy. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Right? I'm not immune to this stuff. Like there it is, you know.
Right.
But it feels like I can't go talk to him. I can't go have any effect at all on Doge or what he's doing. My voice is absolutely meaningless. So the Tesla is just the proxy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You know, I can hurt the Tesla, but I'm really trying to hurt him, right? It's the same damn thing. Yeah. And in that sense, it's almost well, I'm not even going to go there. It's just awful all around, but it's just what people do.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's the little stuff.
See it on the left and the right is, you know, let's hurt the proxy because I can't hurt the real thing. And that's a phenomena that, you know, is encouraged during times of intense injustice. People feel like we're living in a time of great injustice,
and they're not entirely wrong. Like you've got these like another example, right? So like you've got the trans issue, right? But you've got other issues like, for example, the male loneliness epidemic that they're calling it. That like, oh, young white men are incels forever. Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost. Oh, I thought we lost you for a second.
No.
So it's the same kind of like these men feel like there's an injustice, and they feel like there's an injustice, and there's a market for that, and that market feeds into that toxicity. How true it is or is not, right? But the reason that these men feel like there is injustice is because they don't feel like they're being productive in life. They don't feel like it's fair to get education because they feel like they're getting gatekeeped out of it by minorities. They feel, or by women, or by like things like DEI, or things like critical race theory, or whatever they think is causing the problem, when sometimes the simplest answer is you're not good enough to get into the school. Or women don't want to sleep with you because they know you don't like them.
Well, sure, exactly. It's a self-defeating movement for sure. It's based in self-loathing, by the way. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've been down that incel rabbit hole. It's a dark place. But it's somebody I was just watching. Oh, Josh Johnson did a fucking stand up on this just yesterday.
Yep.
Very good. So I'm not going to.
He's very funny.
Points. Go watch it, but it's really good. He makes a very, very good point about incels and the fact that the reason Andrew Tate and these guys latch on to these young men is because they're the only ones who are giving these guys any guidance at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no other option. So you're boxing people into a corner. So it's the same, and then they jump on, and then those people then jump onto the thing, they glom onto something that they think makes it feel like they're getting something done, even if they are or are not, or if that thing is constructive or destructive, right? So like you've got the incels jumping onto the MAGA movement because it goes in line with making them feel better about wanting to have a job, wanting to have a traditional wife, wanting to hate trans people because fuck trans people, I guess. Because these women, there are less women. Women are weaker, so it's easier to hate on women, right? So it's taking back that feeling of control because it's easier to oppress somebody else to make you feel that way regardless.
Absolutely. And let me throw this at you.
Yeah.
Being a guy.
Mm-hmm. I'm on board.
Being in the world for 11, 12 years now, out of my cult.
Yep.
And paying more than a little bit of attention to social media and social patterns, you know, and messaging and all that over all these years, right?
Yep.
I will say from my perspective as an American male that the only group of people who are giving young men something to follow or believe in
Yeah.
are these people,
Yes.
right?
And they have options.
These salespeople, really.
And they have options. You can pick Andrew Tate or you can pick Jordan Peterson. Those are two very different things.
Exactly.
So
But
there's like more than one.
But there they are. There's the only thing you're hearing on the left. You're a toxic fucking male. Shut the fuck up and sit down. Your only job is to listen.
Yeah. And that's no good.
That's a bullshit message.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. It worked.
It shouldn't work.
It's supposed to work.
Right. It shouldn't work.
Opposite of what it was supposed to do, because it was delivered in anger. There was no sense of compassion or sympathy. And I'm not just talking about to the incels, right?
Oh, just to men in general, yeah.
Just straight up, you suck, right? You're part of the oppressor class and you need to shut the fuck up and sit down, right? Now, fair enough. A lot of guys did need to shut the fuck up and sit down for a minute.
Sure.
But to tell them that that's all that they get to do, you don't get to be part of it. I can't tell you how many times I saw, you don't get to be part of this conversation. You don't get to be in this conversation. You're not good enough, strong enough, hard enough, fast enough, whatever. What do you think they're going to do when you keep telling people that? What would you do if somebody kept telling you that? You tell those people to go fuck off.
Yeah.
That's what you would do.
Oh, and that's fair.
Yeah.
When you box people into a corner and then try to pretend you're being inclusive, you're absurd. You're like, on the face of it, you're being absurd. So like, one of the things that I've heard talked about, I've heard mentioned, is that one of the problems that that has led to sort of where we're at was the removal of like coffee shops for men. Like the smoke room time. So like back in the day, there used to be like these social clubs.
Yeah, they still are. Yeah.
But so there seems to be like this idea floating around that there aren't any for men exclusively anymore. And
Not
so
too
men were so mad about that because now they were like, well, we just got forced out of our space and now we have nowhere to go, even though that wasn't actually necessarily the case.
Right. I know.
Right? So it's one of those things, like, it's the same as like when somebody says like, listen, we're not talking to you right now. I'm not like, I want to know what you have to say. Or they're just saying, listen, we're having women having a chance to talk right now. And instead they take that as sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. You don't get to say anything. But that's not what was said. And that's not to say that that wasn't being said.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, exactly. See, I didn't say that it wasn't being said, did I? I didn't say that. So it's like, it's one of those things where like, because there's so much going on, that one group is going to be telling you to shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down and we don't want to hear anything what you have to say. But that doesn't mean that every person who is like, yeah, but we're talking to women right now is saying that to you.
Right.
Right?
I think the disingenuous comes in when it's like, okay, well, look, you're not telling me to shut the fuck up and sit down and all that, but they did, and then the response you get is, yeah, but what did you do? Yeah, you probably deserved it. Yeah, but it's always this sort of but. And I think that on all ends of it, this is just what it is to be human. I'm not saying I'm not saying that this is ever going to change. I'm just saying because this happens, you get consequences.
Yeah.
And since you brought it up, it's like, yeah, this is why this happened, right? And again, it ties back into everything with the economics and the disparity and the anxiety, the social anxiety.
Shifting the economic expectation without shifting the social expectation is incredibly unhealthy. What society in America specifically, because again, let's just focus on America for now. When you shift the economic expectation to two families, to women working, to yada, 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 but then still leave this social expectation that men should be able to do all of this by themselves, that's
exactly the problem.
So problematic. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been literally physically unable to do what we used to be able to do, and that's that economic disparity. And I just can't speak enough about how key that is to so many things in our mutual societies.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an American problem, And I also need to stress that everything we're talking about is about perception. It's not about objective reality.
Right.
It's not about whether you do or don't have opportunities.
Yeah, it's about how you feel about it. And
do you think you have opportunities? Because it doesn't matter how many opportunities you have if you don't think you have any.
It's the whole it's the illusion of choice. Right. Do you actually have a choice? You have to eat.
Right. That's right. There's also another very interesting phenomena that I noted recently that I thought you might find interesting. In directly observing people in these situations and conditions, right? You find an interesting thing that happens, which is their sense of future as you take people's hope away from them. Mm-hmm. And I experienced this in Scientology many, many ways. So I have a subjective understanding of this too. It's not just an observation. But it's interesting that the less hope you have, or the less faith you have in a future, the less you're thinking about the future.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What's the point of thinking about something that doesn't exist?
Yeah, exactly. So it becomes very much, I might be dead tomorrow. So today, I think I will take this meth.
I think that's one of the reasons why Obama did so well. Hope and change. He was selling a future to people.
Oh gosh, yes.
That they didn't feel for a long time that they had one. So sorry, I don't mean like his presidency was successful, and I don't mean what he did was successful with that presidency. I mean that he was successful in being elected, and why he had big crowds and a lot of hype.
Fantastic job. Obama's charisma is undeniable.
Oh yeah.
And he was a social media giant. I mean, he really killed on that campaign. I wish he had kept that same energy when he got into office. But he didn't.
Alas.
Yeah.
Corporate Democrats.
Yeah. So anyway, just thought I'd point that thing out about the future because it's important to understanding when we sit and rail about, I can't understand these people. They don't make any sense to me. Well, understand they're not thinking the same way you are at all. And if you can shift how you're thinking so you can kind of see the world more the way they're seeing it, they'll become a lot more understandable as human beings.
One of the best ways to get a beat on this, in my opinion, is to look at polls that are about a thing or like a handful of things, rather than looking at polls that are asking Democrats or Republicans. If you do a poll that says, how do you feel about healthcare? And you don't call it Obamacare, you don't call it Medicaid or whatever. You say, hey, do you think that if you pay into this, you should get X, Y, or Z? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people will say yes. Right? If you look at the way people are reacting to national parks being defunded, everybody's like, wait, no, hold on. I'm okay with my taxes going to that thing. That wasn't my problem. So you've got these things that people, regardless of where they fall on the definitely left and right political spectrum that America definitely has. If you look at the political spectrum,
yeah.
If you look at the political spectrum, regardless of where they fall, they will agree with things about like wealth inequality. They'll agree about wanting their taxes to go to things that are social. Like you ask them about social security type things. You ask them about, do you think this would be effective if we were to put money into it? They say yes. So when you're talking about whether or not a political system is, if you look at that, again, particularly in America, what you see is the Democrats not doing those things, and you see the right wing not doing those things. The Republicans aren't doing those things. So what you have is people in America wanting these things, and then the Democrats selling these things like Obama and not doing them. or only partially doing them, or doing them to a kind of degree, maybe.
Well, and that's actually on both sides, right? Because the GOP
yeah.
on the same hat trick, right?
Absolutely.
It's the same on both ends, and that's why Trump.
Yes.
Because remember 2016, right? 15, what was it? 14 GOP candidates on stage, and Trump wiped the floor with them. Every one of them, he killed. It's not Democrat versus Republican. This is populism. And it's a very different animal from American conservatism. And that's actually the beginning of the conversation. If that's not understood, nothing else is going to make sense.
Well, and there's a handful of things that Trump is doing that he definitely said he was going to do, and everybody's like, wait, no, not like that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, drain the swamp is not what he's doing, but he's definitely draining something.
Well, exactly. He says lots and lots of things. As far as
egg
I've been
prices.
trying to parse out. Let me share this with you because it's interesting. I've been trying to parse out what is it these people think they're doing. You know,
you mean the Trump administration? Yeah.
The Trump administration, yeah, because Trump. This is not Trump's tariff obsession and stuff. Is not Trump's dictated policies. This isn't something Trump came up with.
Sure.
A guy named Peter Navarro did, and
they've talked about that. That's public knowledge. Yeah.
And you have this America First Policy Institute, for example, right, which is all about reshaping America. It's very akin to Project 2025, but actually senior to them, and putting people in Trump's cabinet and this kind of thing. And you can go on their website, America First, check it out, America First Policy Institute. And there's a whole manifesto and breakdown of stuff, and it's all very, very interesting because it's all about what these people are actually doing right now. But there is a plan there. There is a thought process as to what they're trying to do, right? Which is basically bring America back to 1950.
I would almost argue they're trying to actually go Gilded Age.
In the sense of the 1%, yes.
Yeah.
But there's a vision on the part of some of these people, and I'm not saying this is realistic.
Oh yeah, sure.
This is even what they're going to accomplish. They're ham-fistedly doing things that are so incredibly destructive and stupid and short-sighted. And Trump is not about this whole master plan. Trump is about Trump.
Trump's a figurehead. He's got the people that agree with him, and
but there are people behind Trump who are very serious about this.
Yeah, I think Trump is probably the least of the concerns about what's actually going on. Trump is just the big vision, the big people, he's good at getting people to engage, right? Which is that's not to say that he's not important. It's to say that I don't think he matters that much. Which sounds counterproductive or counterintuitive, but you know.
I'm going to push back on that, but here's what I'm going to say. And I think it might surprise you.
No, please.
Okay. If Trump were actually a Putin or an Erdogan, the guy who runs Turkey, a serious dictator with serious intellectual chops who actually does understand his position and what he's doing, we would be in a lot more trouble right now. All of us.
Yeah, I think if Trump was an actual dictator and actually knew what he was doing, one of the first things he would have done was set up war with Mexico.
He might still.
Oh yeah, he's still already talking about that, but now is a very different position than doing that before doing all this other shit.
Right. Trump's disorders here. I get to go a little psych again here. Trump's disorders drive him. And Trump's primary disorder is narcissism. Now, I'm not a narcissism expert, but I have had to learn all about it because cults, right?
It's not your speciality. It's just part of it. It's a branch of what you do.
I'm not pretending to be a clinician or a diagnostician or something like that, right? I'm not a clinical therapist. But but we all know about narcissism now, probably way more than we need to, or whatever.
Yeah.
The point about Trump is that Trump doesn't have a sense of self.
He's malleable.
Trump is well, he's malleable in a way, but he's disordered. And there's a great deal of emotional dysregulation there. There's an inability to regulate his own emotional feelings, right? And he's so easily bored because there's kind of no there's no there. Right? He's not operating on some vision or some plan, or there's no goal other than kind of reducing it down to what you might think of as like a mob boss mentality. It's like immediate gratification and satisfaction, or is what I'm doing right now going to lead to that? And if it's not, why the fuck am I doing it? Get it away from me. I don't want this here. I want what's going to feed my narcissism, which means I need admiration and love and loyalty and compliance from the people around me. And I need to feel like, there's that whole spiritual.
It's that transactional thing everybody's been saying about him. It's like it's very like instant gratification. Give this to me now. That's one of the reasons why I'm happy with the way Carney has, our current prime minister, has handled him, because he's like, I'm not feeding your narcissistic supply. I am not engaging with you until these set things are met. And one of those things was acknowledging Canada's sovereignty. And Trump bent the knee. He had to do it. He had no other choice. Carney boxed him into a corner because Carney's a fucking adult.
Well, and somebody who understands that Trump admires strength.
Right.
He admires it.
Yes.
He's not sycophantic to Putin. He admires Putin.
Right.
And he wants Putin to admire him back. He wants, though, what Putin has. And what he thinks Putin has is the, undying loyalty and gratitude of his populace and all of that shit. And he has military parades and he's got all this extravagant stuff. And he goes, wow, I want that. Trump's the golden toilet guy, right? This is not a deep guy.
I am convinced that he paints himself orange because he actually wants it to be gold. He wants to look gold.
Kind of. I think it's part of his dementia. If dementia. That's a strong term to use, but
sure.
Anyway,
whatever's going on with him.
Yeah. My point is that Trump goes from event to event to event. And in his mind, it is, okay, I am here now. What's happening to me? What is
instant feedback
my way, right? And if he gets bored in it, like the day, okay, somebody else pointed this out, and I agree completely with this, right? The day that Liberation Day, one, he gives it a fucking name like that, and two, he just couldn't wait to get this great big poster out with all these countries, and we're gonna this, and we're gonna this, and this, and it's kind of like, if you imagine, like at this level that I'm talking about, it's like your third grade bully.
And then it lasted 10 minutes.
Yeah, it just goes on and on, right?
Oh, yeah. What are we at now? 140?
Why do people keep telling me what I think about Biden?
I don't know.
You have no idea what I think about Biden because you don't listen to what I say about Biden.
Do you want to go into Q&A and we'll touch on this?
Annoys me. This endlessly annoys me. Do not misrepresent me. It is so annoying to me. I have said many times that I am not impressed by and was not happy with Biden.
We have literally been sitting here shitting on the Democrats this entire time.
This entire time. That feedback that you give me? Are you kidding me right now? This is the best you've got?
God, listen, Chris, you didn't specify you were specifically talking about Biden, though, that the Democrats had a problem. And you didn't specify when you said that actually the position on the left and the position that we find ourselves in is part of the problem. No, that never happened. You didn't say that.
No, not at all. Nothing. I did not go there at all. Not at all.
All right. We have been live for an hour and a half, so we should switch to Q&A. But do you have anything you want to wrap up from your paper before we switch to Q&A?
No, but let me. What I wanted to finish up with on Trump there, though, right? The reason I got onto that is just about the thing about the war in Mexico, and the reason why that's actually a real threat is because if Trump gets bored, you know, tariffs might not be enough, right? He might have to start bullying people with the military. I mean, once he realizes he has the nuclear codes, you know what I mean? Like, there's
I have a thing to point out about the tariffs that I want to say when we get back, but I will say it when we get back. So like and subscribe, and if you're not seeing this in the future, it means you need to become a member. So thanks so much for your guys' participation. We'll be back with the Q&A, but if you do have questions, please be sure that you tag Debate Hub in them, because if you don't tag them, I might not see them. So make sure to tag. Go and find Chris's stuff. It is linked down below. Thank you, Chris, for joining us, and we will be back in about, like, 1 minute. Yeah! Welcome back, everybody. I had to pee really bad. We're at the Q&A portion. We get a little bit more loosey-goosey. And I gotta say, it is April 10th, right? It is April 10th. It's snowing outside. I got flurries. So, all right, I had to think about the tariffs, right? And to me, this goes into what you were saying, right? You're talking about how Trump is very, like, one-to-one. There's not, like, there's a plan, but it's not like Trump's plan. Trump is just kind of going with the flow, keeping people engaged, keeping people mad, keeping his base maybe happy, maybe not. I don't know where they're at this point. I think the tariffs are incredibly indicative of that. Because he threatens the tariffs. People ask him, okay, don't do this. What do we do to avoid the tariffs? What does America want? And he goes, here's your tariff. And then when people are like, but we want to negotiate, he's like, look, I got them to negotiate. And it's like, they were already willing to negotiate with you, though. So what did you actually get? And the answer is tariffs in response. So, like, if you had a plan, if you were a guy with a plan, you would make the threat, wait for the response, and then be like, oh, well, we're negotiating now, and if you don't do what I want... But Trump doesn't have a thing that he wants. The thing that he wants is to be acknowledged as in a position of power, but to whatever makes him happiest at the moment, and now you're playing a game of, what do I say that's going to make Trump happy? And the answer is like, you have to keep guessing, and you have to keep doing it, because he's just so one-to-one-to-one-to-one.
That's right. And he happens to be sitting at the desk of the most powerful office in the world. So whatever he says, you have to take seriously.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's the worst.
And that's what makes it the worst. That's what
Yeah.
worst is if he didn't have all that power invested in him, none of this would matter. But he's got all the power, and it's a tremendous amount of it. And he knows that. And his negotiation style, as we might have noticed over and over and over again, regardless of what his ghost written art of the deal says, is beat you mercilessly right from the get-go, right? To overwhelm you with force and power, and then take what I want from you. And then if you don't like it, leave you in the dust and ignore you and ruin you utterly, as Hubbard would say, if you make noise about it.
And I make you guess what you think I want, because it's all just like some sick power play game, but this is global politics. And like, him and his friends are going to make a bunch of money in the short term, but they're never going to make as much money as they would have had they left everything alone, because it's not all about this pump and dump fucking scheme.
It's not just some crazy stock thing. It's a much bigger thing that's going on.
I think the stock thing was literally just a way to keep all the people that were like all the people with real money that were mad about what he was doing, keep them happy in the meantime while he just fucks around and jerks off in the Oval Office.
I know. I honestly, I'm not on the short term. I can't really say. I'm more confident about looking at this stuff bigger picture and sort of longer term. Day to day, trying to predict a narcissist is an effort and futility.
Uh-oh. The Americans have found out that Canada owns a bunch of their banking. Uh-oh. That's one of my favorite things. This has been like long-standing public knowledge, and then Trump tweeted something out, and now suddenly it's a problem, which I find hilarious because Americans should have realized that was a problem a long time ago, and they just didn't notice. All I'm saying is that all the people who want to go to war with Canada don't understand that a lot of your money is all tied up in Canadian banks. And maybe you should do something about it. Don't mind me, I'm just a shit. One of the questions we got is from Tom. And Tom is asking, are Trump's economic policies neo-mercantilism?
Mercantilism.
Is that how you pronounce that? Mercantilism?
Yeah, mercantile.
Yeah.
I am going to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Mercantilism is a policy regime that, like its historical predecessor, mercantilism, encourages exports, discourages imports, controls capital movement, and centralizes currency decisions, aiming to increase the nation's foreign reserves and enhance its economic and political power. It's interesting. I would say it has elements of that.
Yeah, it's definitely got some of those things, but I am not convinced that the goal or that the result of what Trump is doing is going to enhance America's geopolitical power.
No, Trump's basing his actions off of the ideas of a man whose ideas are rejected by most serious professional economists. That's a key underlying problem right now in what we're doing. Is if strong measures were needed in order to prevent disaster or emergency of some kind, then strong measures would be needed. But that's not what's happening right now. And so this is kind of a self-created emergency.
So what's happening to everybody else?
Yeah, exactly. And it's being made everybody's problem. And it's not that everything in the economic world is all roses and butterflies, but this whole tariff trade war thing it's madness, literally on a global scale.
It's one of those things where I'm very curious about the idea of people saying this is the art of the deal, and I'm like, what's the deal? I'm fucking Jerry, but what's the deal?
Yeah, Bill Ackerman or whatever can go
Yeah, I just don't understand. I don't understand the end goal. And I mean, I know that there's like a conspiratorial group that are going to say that's the point. You're not supposed to know. He's so smart. You don't know what the end goal is. And I'm like, okay,
When I said earlier,
but
and this is kind of underlined, bold-faced, italicized. I mean, it's real. It's one of those like really important things.
Mhm.
That when I said that Trump's base believes that Donald Trump is the source of truth, you got to really get your head around like how powerful that is.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
that's not just a bunch of hicks in rural stick villages who believe that.
No.
I'm talking about people who are hedge fund managers, who have, you know, 7 figures in their bank account.
Who are in charge of the FBI.
Believe that truth emanates from Donald Trump's lips, because if he says it, that's reality. It's not a matter of is it morally right or not. That's never part of the equation when you're dealing with what I'm talking about. Right? This is the source of truth. Right. And that's a huge part of the problem around Trump, is that he doesn't acknowledge objective reality as having any significance in his decision making or in the lives of anybody. None of that matters.
And it doesn't matter what he said before 20 minutes ago.
Oh, words are meaning to Trump. They're just sounds to get you to do things. That's what words are. To him.
Darth has a serious question, which
what do you got?
Accidentally just implicitly, like they just implied that anything else they said before this was unserious. And I'm giving you a hard time. I'm just giving you a hard time. Don't get all fragile about it. It's fine. Serious question for Chris. Chris, do you still believe? So there's an assumption that this was your belief. So yeah, you can clarify that. Do you still believe Trump will end democracy and end elections in the United States?
No, I don't. And I said this the other day. So you should watch my shows.
So first off, did you ever believe that?
I did. I believed there was a time when I hadn't yet. Well, before last November, right? I mean, I'm trying to figure this out, right? And I'm trying to share what I learn or know or think as quickly as I can.
You're doing a process, live stream process.
Absolutely reserve the right to change my mind, right?
Oh.
So yeah, I do believe that I have said or indicated things that Trump is, you know, going to end things and this kind of thing, right?
He's definitely ended some things.
That's for sure. But no, I don't think Trump's going to end democracy. Because what I went and got educated on since then were cycles of history, you know, and the fact that governments rise and fall, and that the American government is going to fall. Is Trump going to do it? Probably not. I mean, predictions are a dime a dozen, so I can't say for sure. But I don't believe that Trump has it in him to be able to end the United States and our electoral process. What happens with elections under authoritarian power is that elections become less and less meaningful or important to the end result of the election process. But elections still happen.
Yeah, there's still elections in Russia right now.
Exactly. So if I said, no, he's going to end all elections, that wouldn't even fit with any history book, right? I mean, it's like, no, that's not how it's going to go down.
Sure.
What we have to be concerned about is not this is where I was going with Trump earlier. I don't know if I finished this thought on the tariffs, and it's another important one. Trump blinked.
Yes.
Right? A Putin, an Erdogan, they don't blink.
Yeah, they've got a plan. They're like, no, we're putting this in place because there's a reason why we're putting it in place. Trump is doing it because he wants to be respected, because as much as he wants to claim that the other countries respect him, they don't.
No, they don't respect him, but they respect his power.
Oh, yeah, sure. But he wants respect for him, not for America.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. He is too self-centered to be able to pull off what a Putin could pull off.
Yeah.
And that's why we're not going to have that problem right now, as I see it.
Sure.
The people who are implementing the America First policy stuff and the Project 2025 stuff and the Doge stuff, which is kind of a separate thing on top of the Project 2025 shit, those people are serious as a heart attack about what they're doing. They are true believers in what they are doing. They're not just a bunch of 1%ers getting it over on people. Even 1%ers have beliefs.
Oh yeah.
Right. And there are some very true believers in that camp who are ideologically, emotionally driven to reinvent America in the image that they have written out in their policies. So that's very real. And those people are very real and they are very serious about what they're doing. But without the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the president all colluding to work on this shit together, as is happening right now, it doesn't work. And so will this maintain the way that it's structured right now? I don't think it will, because these things inevitably tend to eat themselves. And Trump is the last person who can, organize his way through this. He's horrible at that. So this is his whole life is shattered relationships and broken people. So so I don't think that he has the capacity to undo 250, 300 years of what we've put together here. But where I go with this and why I always say it doesn't necessarily have a happy ending in all of this is because 10, 15 years from now, we do get the true believer dictator.
Yeah, then you get there. So you need to correct course now sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
I mean, I agree with that. Like, I don't think that Trump has the wherewithal to have a team that can get the stuff done that would need to be done to impose or just take down the entire American structure. The people he has around him aren't the most capable. You've got your Pam Bondi, and none of them know what's going on. That's why you get Trump is saying this here, what's her face press secretary says what he said, and then the next day something different is happening. That's why you're seeing it. One of the commerce guys in court saying that, oh no, this isn't being talked about, this isn't a discussion, and then while he's sitting there saying that in court, Trump does the thing that he's saying isn't happening, and then they're like, well, were you aware of this? And he said, it wasn't being discussed yesterday. So you don't have Trump does not have and is not able to build a cohesive team that is a long-term team or plan.
No,
right?
He definitely that is beyond his ability to do. That is for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think that regardless of whether you like Trump as a president, don't like Trump as a president, agree with his policies, don't agree with his policies, these are just the way things are, regardless.
Yeah. But the idea,
I do think he is going to make a play on democracy. So I agree with you that I don't think he's going to get rid of all elections in America. There's too many different kinds of elections all over the place in America. I don't think he has the capability of removing that, and I don't even think he would want to. It would be a lot of wasted effort for what ostensibly wouldn't matter. The point is to make an election irrelevant rather than removing it. But I would say that if you make the presidential election or the elections for House and seats in Congress, if you make those irrelevant enough, then I would probably be willing to call that the fall of American democracy.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the point of suborning the GOP, right? And you all go down to Mar-a-Lago and party hardy down there and all this. I mean, the GOP is just a bunch of lapdogs at this point, and it's really quite disturbing. I mean, because that's 1/3 of our government. They're just as important as Trump in this picture, and they're just reduced themselves down to the status of lapdogs, which is, again, a downstream effect of all the years of all the bullshit, of this stuff. This doesn't just affect us, it affects the integrity and workability of our government structures, so.
Well, and your country as a whole, as soon as you start putting in tariffs and you start taking away infrastructure and you start misappropriating taxes.
It's just
right?
been grossly mismanaged for so long, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? That
No, yeah, I would agree with that.
the managers themselves are like, yeah, it's not manageable, so whatever, Trump, you know, because they got all rejected. I mean, you know, it's the whole, well, if I don't, you know, go along with the populist post-truth bullshit, then I don't have a job anymore, and so I'll go along with it, you know. And that's the level of integrity that we have in that group, and it's not good.
So is your real concern not necessarily what's happening right now in what Trump is actually capable of? Your concern is that this is not going, nothing is going to change after Trump is gone, and in 15 years from now, that's when you're going to see like a Putin show up.
Absolutely, that's what I'm afraid of. If that long, and I am
Sure.
very concerned about that. And I think I have a lot of good reasons to be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've been talking about how MAGA's feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid.
Well, I guess
um,
yeah, but
yeah,
truthfully, if
yeah,
people think that this is just Trump
no,
and he's
you
going to
missed the
go
point.
away or die or get killed and everything's going to be going back to the way it was, you're dreaming. It's never going back.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get that in your head. We're never going back. That's not what's going on. And that's why it's really important to understand all this economic crap and social forces stuff, because it's not about Trump. Trump didn't make all this happen.
The geopolitical vibe, I guess, will tell you what the answer to this question is. Go look at the way any other country is behaving, and go look at the way any other country is handling this scenario. Whether you agree with them or not, they are detangling themselves and removing themselves from engaging and isolating America out. America's trying to isolate itself, and everybody is saying, great. And they're reforming and readjusting these agreements. That doesn't mean that they're going to stop trading with America in totality. That's not going to happen. But what you will see is you're going to see America loses its position of power. It loses its veto power in assuming that Trump stays in NATO. And even if Trump is gone and America rejoins NATO next president or whatever, you're going to lose your veto power. You're going to lose the benefits that you get from trading with Canada and Mexico as a conglomerate, like as a group, right? Things like cheaper oil, things like potash, things like all the prices of all of that stuff is going to go up. Because the relationships, the global relationship is the thing that Trump has destroyed. Because keep in mind, this is the America is on round 2. Trump was doing this shit the first term. And everybody went, all right, guys, you get one. America's system is going to handle it. The American democracy and its checks and balances are going to take care of this so it doesn't happen again. Oh, we're doing it again. Oh, and it's worse this time. You're not getting another chance. The fact that you got a second one is already like indicative of how, like, what a position of power America was in and the desire of everybody else to work together with America. But, like, no country is gonna fucking deal with you guys. No offense.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens. I hope that that's not the outcome, but on the other end of that is, you know, perhaps violent conflict, and I certainly don't want that.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
There's
That's
nobody.
one thing that Trump is doing that is, like, the worst thing a dictator would ever do. And it's pissing off everybody all at once.
It's an incredibly strained thing, you know, because I'm part of a country that is the most powerful country in the world in terms of raw military power and force, and economic power and leverage. I mean, we just are. And I don't only because I was born here.
Sure.
You know, I mean, there's nothing I did to be here to make this, you know, what it is. And I see what's happening here. The reason I wanted to talk about this is not just to clarify how we got here in terms of America, but also to try to point out that these same forces are at play in every country, and that the threat is real. No one imagined in 2016 that Donald Trump was actually going to be elected. It was a big fucking joke.
Yep.
And here we are. And I hope, and I don't think the rest of the world is yet clued in yet just like the American left hasn't clued in yet on certain things about Trump and about the time we're in. I don't think the rest of the world's caught up yet quite either, that the same threats and dangers exist in their country too.
There are 2 countries that I think have noticed, maybe 3 if you don't include Ukraine. Ukraine is kind of embroiled right now, so I would give them a pass. And the person that they've elected is already sort of very on one side. You know what I mean? Canada is very much noticed. And I would cite 2 things that make this incredibly true to me, at the very least. One is Pierre Poilievre is very Trumpy. He's very got the Trumpy thing. He's got the same kind of slogans, the same kind of like populist, the same kind of the stuff he wants to do is the same. It's the same shit. So that would be indicative that we definitely have one. And 2, it's that people recognize that and they don't like it. So Canadians have watched what has happened in America, and Trump has gone through and done his tariffs, and like Canadians are pissed. Like, they are not happy. And the polls, which had the Conservatives, our Trump, in a 20-point lead in seats for the federal election, has swung that they have dropped the seats, they've lost the lead, and the Liberals have taken another 20-point lead on top of where they were.
Right.
So we're talking about a swing of plus 40, plus 50 points. For anybody who doesn't know, Canadian federal election goes off of seats, and so the number of seats that you need for a majority is 174. The Conservatives are the Liberals are projected to win over 200. And what is the Liberals' main message right now? Building, unification, and fuck Donald Trump. like fuck what's going on right now. And so because the Liberal Party is our right wing, they are our center right, but they're our right wing. They want to, the things that their platform is on is about doing more jobs, more high-skilled jobs, trading out instead of turning inwards, untangling from America more, and still negotiating and dealing with America, because we're not going to not, but our current relationship with America is over, and it has to be, and we need to take care of ourselves. And the way we take care of ourselves is by building infrastructure, things like like trains, things like social programs, things like making housing affordable. And the way they want to make housing affordable is by hiring more people, so the government will take over those contracts, yada 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 yada. And this is all socialist directions that have a capitalist lilt, which Canada's always had. That's not new. And one of the other main cores that is driving this liberal movement, I guess, is the disdain for what Donald Trump is doing, the disdain for Pierre Poilievre's horseshit, and just the blatant dislike for this, it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and that he's talking about this as an opportunity. One of the things he said in one of his speeches is like, well, America wants to turn inward, and America doesn't want to lead anymore. Canada will do it. Which is a huge thing, because Canada's taken a back seat for a long time.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. I definitely got that. Absolutely.
So it's interesting to see. And the other place I would say is probably who has noticed, and the left has noticed in politics what's gone on here, is France. France is definitely Macron was already left, and Macron was losing points in his polls. And then Trump happened. And so he's gone back up in the polls.
No, I know Le Pen has been banned from stuff.
Oh yeah, he got in trouble for legal reasons.
And it's all true, but let me point out that all of that is just a what's the word? Pause. If you're on a rapids and you run into a little pool of some calm for a second, and then it starts again.
Yeah, I know what you mean. A reprieve.
Yeah, a reprieve. There you go. But it's a short one. It's going to be a short one. The reason I say that is because, again, of all these social forces, right? We haven't reset anything. The momentary disruption that Trump is causing, that is pissing people off, threatening, destabilizing things, it's huge. It's huge. I don't mean to make it out that it's not. But it doesn't, but the backlash to that isn't going to change 1 ounce of the economic disparity that's driving so much of what's going on.
Oh yeah, because those are different things. Those are inherently different things. If you want to fix disparagement, it has nothing to do with whether or not somebody else in another country is having pissing their pants. The question is whether or not these left-leaning politicians are able to take advantage of the momentum that Trump is granting them to actually make socioeconomic changes. And right now they are running on those changes, and those changes are popular. So the question is what happens after that?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't have a lot of faith in the idea that, you know, the wolves are going to make things better for the chickens, right? I just don't think that that's the time that we're in anymore.
Sure.
But I do think that times, I'm not a proponent of the great men of history theory. I think that history provides circumstances that have people rise to the occasion, and that's where we get great figures in history from.
Yes.
Rather than somehow history coalesces around an individual because they're so amazing. I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah, there's been a concern about that. I've seen that question asked about Canadian politics as well, to be like, well, there's so many people that are interested in Carney right now. Are we worried that it's going to be the same problem in the other direction?
Well, it's always a question. It's always a question. But I guess my point is that I'm hoping that there is someone, a group of people, in fact, because we're going to need about 15 of them, you know, on the American political left, who can somehow, we need in this country, we need something far, far more than anti-Trump.
Yeah, Orange Man Bad is not a good, isn't a policy.
It's not going to get anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
What I've described, what's happening here is a big result, a big reason why, in terms of social psychology here, is lack of a unified goal, vision, purpose, or meaning for this country. We haven't had something like that in decades.
Yes.
The last time, I'll argue that the last time that this country was on the same page was right after 9/11. And the only time before that this country was on the same page was when we were going for the moon.
Yeah.
Those are national goals I'm talking about. That's like when everybody's kind of together. And when you can provide leadership, when leadership provides vision and purpose and meaning to people in a substantive way, that's when it's leadership. And we have not had leadership like leadership, right, in decades and decades. And we've had the exact opposite of good leadership. We've had corrupt, evil, fucked up leadership, right? We've had Nixon, and we've had Clintons, and we've had fucking Trump, right? And this is just this series of degraded leaders, so to speak, right? That's a strong word, but, you know, like just people who are not even thinking about vision and taking the country somewhere.
Yeah.
And if we don't get something like that to arise here, then the Dems are lost. Then they're never going to pick back up any steam.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are really, really hoping and have a lot of hope right now that they'll do that something will happen there. You know, I'd get into the fray personally, except I'm not electable. I'm not a politician in any way, shape, or form. I can't do any of that. Yeah. But I will absolutely go balls to the wall to support somebody who provides leadership in the sense that I'm talking about. And if we could get something like that out of these circumstances, and it's happened before, that is how we could arrest the course of this. But this is a global phenomenon, and nobody's in charge of the globe. So, the amount of cooperation and work that would be necessary to turn this boat around in terms of the world situation, it's years and years and years of work.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But we're not anywhere near being on the same page as to what the even problem is to solve.
I think, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I've been enjoying watching Canadian politics. It's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed watching Carney. Carney is putting forward ideas. He is putting forward directions that Canada could go in. His like, if you want to talk about a national goal, this man is talking about two major things. And one of them is turning Canada into an energy superpower. He's like, we have the resources, we have the stuff, we have one of the richest like minerals on the planet. Our national goal should be to become an energy superpower. And to do that, we need nuclear, we need ways of moving stuff around quickly around the country, we need unifying things to make these things affordable and cheaper for Canadians so that we can have higher paying jobs, higher education jobs, so we can invest in these sciences and invest in these he's like, the future is not in oil, period. It's not. Whether or not you want it to be, and whether or not it's worth money, it's not the future. So it doesn't mean don't use it. The point is to use it, but use it effectively while we get these other things going. And he's not talking about a goal that's going to be accomplished in a couple of years. He's talking about setting up systems and structures that are, admittedly, he has said things along the lines of, we're going to have to do things at a rate faster and more than you have than this has ever happened before. He's like, we're talking about like World War II level construction here. This is what we're talking about.
That's how they should be thinking about it. That is exactly how they should be thinking about it. That's really, I like that. That sounds good.
And the second thing that he's talked about is our military. He's talking about like, we were already investing in military, but he's like, there's a gap right now where Canada, or where America cannot be trusted to build military equipment for everybody else. And we have Canada has the facilities, Canada has the space, Canada has the expertise, and Canada has the resources in-house. We have the steel, we have the shit.
Then go for it. Your country also has an opportunity right now in terms of brain drain that is a very of the moment thing.
Yes.
If I were Canada's Prime Minister, I might be thinking quite a bit about incentivizing getting, skilled, highly educated folks who are very serious about leaving this country right now.
There are two things happening right now. Three, but I'll talk about two. There are two that are happening right now. One is that there's investment going into our universities to do research and development where they are hiring and scalping scientists from America.
Could be.
And the second thing that we're doing,
people are going to run to your country right now.
Doctors are currently fleeing America, and we are absorbing all of your doctors. Which, admittedly, one of our medical problems is that we did not have enough professionals. And now we're just like, oh, hey, wow, thank you.
bloody country set a quota on how many doctors you'll train, so you kind of, it's a little bit of a self-inflicted wound on that.
Oh one. Yeah. There's like 3 or 4 things where we're just kneecapping ourselves for no fucking reason, and so I
couldn't believe it. I read that, I was like, what?
Yeah, anyway, there's some stupid things.
I hope you guys do this, because that would be that. I'm telling you, that's the way to go. Canada's got a real super bright future if they play their cards right. And
it's our ball to drop right now.
It really is. It's your race to lose on that. So, because you've got all the cards stacked in your favor right now in a number of ways. Mm-hmm. And I agree with Smitty there on the nuclear power. I'm really pro-nuclear. I don't understand the whole anti-nuclear thing personally. I really don't. It's kind of like being anti-airplane or something. It's like, it's the safest power we've got. It's like, come on.
We need to have a really long-term.
We need to be there, because we got to get off the fucking fossil fuels. So I really don't get the anti-nuclear sentiment.
Canada's got a handful of them. We have some of the largest cache of like the most pure uranium, and it's just like we've literally got everything we could possibly need to do things and do things the right way. And so that disenfranchisement that Canadians are feeling at the same time, like you said, is a global thing, because Canadians are feeling the same kind of disenfranchisement.
That's what our government leaders have got to get their goddamn wits around, and they don't seem to get it. And this is what the technocratic centrists here in this country, this is why they stand there like with their mouths open at Trumpism, is because they're clueless about what's actually driving this country forward. And it's really scary that a whole party whose job it is to understand this stuff, you know, like wow. Yeah. It's wow. Okay, you could just miss the forest for the trees like that, but it really is true that they do. And so now we're seeing a lot of this populist rhetoric coming out of the left, right? I mean, even I'm doing it, where I'm sitting here talking about the elite, you know, and the rest of us. That's popular language. That's not democratic language. That's populist language. So, like, this is kind of it's a little bit of a zeitgeisty thing right now. So we've got to get our wits around this. And this is what I'm talking about with leadership, is if we could get some leaders beyond Bernie, who's just too goddamn old. I mean, we need young, effective, forward-thinking leadership that actually represents us now, not us from 1970s, right? But understands all the things I'm talking about. Otherwise, they're just going to make the same stupid mistakes. It's not a matter of people being evil that brings all this stuff about. It's about people trying to be good, but not getting the bigger picture of where they're operating. And then the whole thing just kind of falls apart.
It's Canada's ball to drop. Canadians are not happy with Polyev. They're not happy with this populist fucking, they're not happy with these stupid rhetorical devices, name calling, useless, like no policy. We're not even, we don't even think, like, right now, taxes are not even very high on the list of things Canadians are listed as concerned about.
Interesting.
The economy we're concerned about, but the taxes are not the part that we're concerned about. And one of the smartest things that our Liberal Party did was, before an election was called, before 2025, Trudeau announced he was resigning.
Right.
What would have happened in America if what's his face, Biden, announced he was resigned, like he wasn't running again, before like in January of, or even like was like even at the beginning of his presidency, being like, listen, I'm not doing another term.
I am. See, that's what set me off about that comment earlier, and I'm sorry I blew up about that, but it was just it set me off because on the Biden thing, because I'm actually so mad at that man.
Oh, yeah.
I'm furious with Biden.
Yeah.
Because it was pure ego that he tried to run again. Sure. And he should have stepped aside right from the get-go and gave Kamala all the space and room she needed, or they, done the primary and figured out who they were going to go.
Done the primary, yeah. No, they absolutely should. I'm not saying that they should have replaced Biden with Kamala earlier. Absolutely not.
They wanted a primary, yeah. Now that I remember all the events, it shouldn't have gone down the way that it did, and it was Biden's fucking fault. And it really pisses me off because on that one, I can point to one guy and go, "Yep, Biden's a smart guy. He's been around for a long time. He did a lot of good."
And the DNC as a whole are a problem, yeah.
Man, did he screw that up? Because it wasn't like Trump was a shoo-in in this last election, by the way. More people didn't show up than voted for him.
Oh, yeah. And then there's a whole ton of issues that the Democrats just went out of their way and made it harder. I mean, I think picking Kamala was one of the things that just made it harder for people to vote for the Democrats. Especially if you're going to try to cater to the right-wing racism and hating women. But one of the things that I'm happy about is if one of the biggest problems that that Canadians are thinking about, or just like America was being concerned about the economy, what did the left wing do compared to the right wing? Keep in mind, the right wing in America, Trump is viewed as an outsider. Whether or not he is, he's viewed as a political outsider. Our Trump has been in politics his whole life. He never did anything outside of politics, so he's actually the insider. But our left-leaning guy is a career economist. who's never been in politics.
He shares some of his knowledge. I hope he knows about this stuff, because
so we've taken like the trope and reversed it. But that was something the Liberal Party did. The Liberal Party recognized the problem, let Trudeau do out his term. Trudeau went out on a high note because Trump's an embarrassment, and Trudeau already dealt with Trump his first time, so he knew how to handle him the second time. And because the Liberal Party, unlike the Democratic Party in America, the Liberal Party in Canada is on the same fucking page with each other.
I have high hopes. I tell you,
God.
I would move to Canada in a microsecond if I could. I know it's a little chilly up there, but I would be happy to be in Canada. But I'm not one of the brain drain, so nobody's looking for me to come up to Canada. So, but I would love to do that. That'd be fun.
Come on, do it.
I can't. I mean, I literally, like, I just don't think I don't think y'all would accept me. I don't know how I can.
Imagine describing the slander that Trudeau faced and being happy and proud of it. Wow, we took a good politician and bullied them out of office. Good job. I'm glad you think that's a good thing. What?
He was there for a long ass time, wasn't he?
10 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, the Liberals have been in power for a decade. No, he was gonna, regardless of the slander and like what Polyev did and stuff, and like the interference from India and Russia was a part of our overall issue, but not why Trudeau stepped down. Trudeau was going to step down regardless. After 10 years, people were going to be tired of him anyway. So what they did was they just took advantage of that 10-year rollover period, which is to be expected in any kind of government of our structure. It happens with any other time you look at any long-running individual. People get tired of them, and it's time to swap them out with somebody else. So Carney was actually talking about, there was talks of Carney taking over the position, and he had a soft launch back in 2001. So we kind of knew that this was going to happen anyway. So he was going to step down regardless. It's just that the right was trying to take advantage with confirmed and already investigated interference from Russia and India to try to swing it. It could be just because that you're having a rollover and who's in charge doesn't inherently mean the other side is going to win the next election. So they were just trying to take advantage of an already existing pattern to to try to convince people to come to their side. And it was working until Carney came in. And then they were like, wait, it's Carney. So it would have been a way closer vote. But then Trump decided to, like, shit himself and destroy and, just fucking cause so many problems that it's making Carney look like a godsend. So, it would have been a close race, but with, all the Trump stuff, Carney's just in the polls. So.
Cool.
It's interesting. It's fun to watch. I'm going to be covering more of it on my channel, but, on my personal channel, but. We should get out of here. We've been live for a long time. 2 hours.
Yeah, it's gonna get going. But thank you very much for giving me a, soapbox on.
Anytime. I think these conversations are interesting. I'm sure we'll do another one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always around. I'm happy to talk about this stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to. I hope this was a little bit of clarity. That's all I was really trying to bring. It's just look, this isn't about the Orange Man, and it's not Orange Man bad. This is a much bigger problem. And there are a lot more forces at play. And when Trump goes away, and he will, we're still going to have all these same problems, and let's not have a normalcy bias and, it's all going to get back to normal. It's not. Not till we solve these problems. So I hope that helps.
I find our discussions entertaining and interesting, and they always bring different perspectives. So I am all down for that, and people are more than happy to discuss in the comment section below. And God, the ignorance is amazing in the side chat right now. Absolutely hilarious.
Awesome.
They're talking about managing trade deals with Putin as if that's a thing and not a NATO issue. Tell me you don't know anything about geopolitics without telling me you don't know anything about geopolitics. I'm dying, dude. It's so funny. All right, let's get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been Chesh. This is Chris. Links are in the description down below. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.